Get your back hip into it.
And now it's time for football.
Yes, sir.
Enid Plainsmen Football with Steve and Steve.
Good.
Great. Welcome to Plainsmen Football 2017 with Steve and Steve. After a loss this past Friday night, the Plainsmen dropped to 2-1 with their loss to Oklahoma City McGinnis by a score of 60-34. It was as close as 18-14, and then things turned around quickly. Halftime, it was 46-21, and again a final score of 60-34. It really sounds like a lot of scoring, and as I say, a horse race, if you will. But I think in some senses, and Coach Hayes will perhaps attest to this, it was closer in a lot of regards, even though there is that difference in the score. So, Coach, welcome to the show. It's always good to have you back. And you travel to Oklahoma City, you meet McGinnis, you know that they're a strong powerhouse, state champion type caliber team. And so there's no surprises for you, but they had a running back that decided to do some extra running. Yeah. And it seemed like it was just kind of challenging for the Plainsmen to slow this guy down.
Yeah.
No matter how hard you tried to.
Yeah, you know, Bishop McGinnis is a quality football team. They're state finalists last year and have an excellent chance of making back there and possibly winning this year. Dominic Richardson is a tremendous football player. Their running back, he had a huge night against us. I think he had 450 yards total production between special teams and in his offensive rushing. He's a great player, and we really didn't have an answer for him. At times we moved the ball well on offense. And had a good night there. Had about 454 yards on offense ourselves, but in the end, our inability to stop them both on special teams and on defense, I think, was our undoing.
Coach, talk a little bit about the time that it got to 18-14. Yes, they're ahead, but you score, and it's a manageable game, if we can use that term.
Sure.
And then there was a real quick turn of events. So tell us 18-14, and then what happens after that?
You know, we got to stop. Which enables us to get the ball back and go down and score 18-14, and then we kick off to them, and we kick away from Dominic Richardson, and the guy that's supposed to field it drops it. He runs over and picks it up and returns it 96 yards for a touchdown and puts them back up at that point 25-14, and that was a tough moment in the game, I think, as far as really feel like we'd gotten some momentum back, had gotten back in the ball game, and now had given it up so easily.
Can you kind of tell us the mindset? You've had a great week of practice. You traveled to Oklahoma City. You're on the field, a great high school football environment, if you will. And before the game is underway, can you just kind of explain to our viewers the thought process? I mean, you don't feel intimidated. You feel like you've got a game plan. Can you just kind of elaborate what it kind of felt like at that time before kickoff?
I think it felt just like it does, just like it has prior to any game this year. I think that physically we felt like we were ready. Mentally we were ready. Had a good warm up. It was a good trip. It wasn't our first road trip, so that was a common routine for us. And my hat's off to McGinnis. They have a great football team. They played well and definitely deserved to win last Friday night.
So let's take the step a little bit further and just your assessment of the Plainsmen, both sides of the ball. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the outcome?
Defensively, we've been very opportunistic. We've gotten a lot of turnovers. Actually, caused them to fumble 4 times in the game, but we didn't recover any, which in the previous games we had done that. We'd stopped several of our opponents' drives through forcing turnovers, and for whatever reason, we couldn't get on the ball after we got it loose.
Excuse me, let me just piggyback on that real quick. Opportunist, with the number of interceptions you've had, number of fumble recoveries, and just really the change of the ball. How does that compare to last year and the previous years? Are you way ahead or just 2 interceptions ahead? Is there any way for you to calculate compared to 3 games a year ago, 2 ago, say, man, we have 5 more interceptions we ever did?
Oh, we're definitely much more opportunistic defense thus far in the season than we were a year ago.
Okay.
And I think that's really been a difference. And then Friday night, we were able to force those turnovers, but we weren't able to get on the ball and take advantage of it. And I think that's 4 possessions right there that we potentially could have had that they didn't score. That's a different ball game. I think on special teams, we need to do a better job of covering kicks. Part of that as coaches is we need to match how we're kicking the ball with the people we have covering it. I think we're going to need to make some changes this week in regards to that. The other special teams, like our punt team, that's been very productive for us as far as our net punt, as well as the success we've had faking punts and getting extra possessions there. Offensively, I feel like we're in a pretty good place. Consistency is always something that you want to improve on offensively. Friday night, for the first time this year, we didn't score on the first drive of the game. Didn't score on the first drive of the second half. And that's something that was kind of our characteristic of us, and to me is really, really important. And so we've got to get that back this week when we play Putnam City West.
Yeah, because there seemed to be a trend that you were scoring in 6 plays.
Yeah.
I mean, just something really quick. Just go and score. Okay, that's done. Let's go on and play defense for a little bit.
Well, and for the season right now, we're averaging 275 yards a game rushing and 240 yards a game passing. Those are great balanced averages. It's 515 yards a game offense. And so we're in pretty good shape there. We just need to make sure we continue to manage turnovers and don't put our defense in bad positions by going 3 and out.
Coach, it's 46-21 at halftime. What's the thought? What's going on in the locker room at that time?
The conversation with the kids really was centered on the fact that, our power is how well we play the next play. We couldn't do anything about the first half at that point. The first half was over. Mistakes had been made, and the score was the score. And there's no 25-point plays. And so really challenge the kids, to go out and start the second half and do the things that we've been taught to do. Go 3 and out on defense, drive down and score on offense, and really measure how well we play by how we play the next play, and continue to improve. And, the second half was a 14-14 tie. And so I think from a score standpoint, it was better. It just, just at that point in time, the game was out of hand.
Sure. Thank you for joining us today on Plainsmen Football for 2017 with Coach Steve Hayes, and for Steve and Steve, I should say. As McGinnis wins the game 60-34, Plainsmen drop to 2-1, and they prepare for the Patriots coming up on Friday, Putnam City, and that's also a game in Oklahoma City. Set us up, if you will. We're moving into the highlights section, Coach, and I know the viewers enjoy looking at the highlights and see a lot of the interceptions back for TDs or just long runs and stuff like that. Yeah. But what are we about to see here for the highlights today?
The interesting thing about highlights is when you look at those, you like how'd they lose. And in every game, you make great plays. It's just in the games you lose, you don't make enough of them. And you're going to see some great highlights of some great plays our kids made Friday night, despite the outcome. 2 of the defensive plays, you're going to see us doing an outstanding job of stopping Dominic Richardson and tackling him for a loss. And so we were capable of doing that at times, even though he still had 350 yards rushing. And so you'll get to see 2 great examples of that. You'll see an interception by Jarrell Williams that stopped a drive in the second half. They were going down to score. It was around about the 10-yard line. Big play. Example of how we've played opportunistically all year. It's a great example of that. And we actually won the turnover margin in the game, and we didn't turn the ball over at all. Offensively, you're going to see a 66-yard touchdown run by Mason Scrimmager. You're going to see a great catch and run, 66-yard catch and run by Damian Ryman, got tackled at the 4. You're going to see a great 35-yard touchdown run by Peyton Phillips, as well as some other great runs by Marlo Hughes. And so just once again, really balanced attack offensively. You'll see several kids touch the ball and have success. It's a great group of highlights. Like I said, you're going to wonder how we didn't win.
And speaking of highlights, you have had to go to the well to get the second person, third person up in many of your positions.
Yes. And they've responded well.
And that seems to have worked well for you.
I think, it really is a reflection of the quality team that we have this year, and that when a guy's name is called, he's able to step up and do what he needs to do to get the job done.
Very good. Coach Steve Hayes has set the stage for the highlights that we're about to review. Thank you for joining us on Plainsmen Football. Let's watch the highlights of the Enid Plainsmen and Oklahoma City McGinnis football game right now. Welcome back to Plainsman Football. Hope you enjoyed those highlights. Coach, tell us a little bit who's behind the highlights. Who's doing the work? One of your assistant coaches, or you got a student athlete? Or we just appreciate their work in getting those highlights to us.
Coach Cash Conder tags the offensive highlights for us.
Okay.
And Coach Jeremy Bashir tags the defensive highlights for us.
Okay.
And then I create a playlist and send them to you guys. So it's really pretty easy with the huddle program.
Okay. Well, we appreciate their efforts to get the highlights because that's, folks enjoy seeing those big plays.
It's a good part of the
over
show.
and over in different angles, if you will.
Yeah.
So, real quick, before we bring in our student athlete here later on this morning, let's talk about the health of the team. Overall, did you come out just kind of with a few bumps and bruises? Because sometimes people forget this is a contact sport.
Yeah, we probably have more kids out at this point than we did a year ago. We're fortunate to have the depth. I think we're going to be just fine. We're down 2 offensive linemen right now. We're down a safety who had an emergency appendectomy last week, and so he's going to be out for maybe as many as 6 weeks. And so that hurt a little bit. We're getting back Titan Stevens, who plays receiver for us, who had a surgery last spring, and he's been released to play. We're also getting back a quality defensive lineman who will make a big difference this week against PC West, and Augie Pritchett, who was a very dynamic player for us last year, and we'll see his first action this Friday night.
Well, I remember the name, Pritchett.
Yeah.
So he may have been one of our guests on our shows. Well, it's good that you have the opportunity that you can go to the bench, that can go to the sidelines, and the next man up.
Yes.
It hasn't always been that way, and in many schools in high school football, it's guys are playing not 2 ways but 4 ways sometimes.
Correct. Yeah, they're on the field for every snap. Yeah.
All right. Well, our thoughts and prayers are with athletes. Keep them safe and also to recover well. So we need to take a break right now and take an opportunity to meet some of the other Plainsman football players. Coach, how many guys suited up? How many people do you have on the team? How many student athletes?
68 right
68?
now for the 10th through 12th grade, and then 43 as the freshman group. And
all right, thank you.
About 110.
Well, we're going to do our best to introduce most of the 68, all of the 68 players to you during the season this year. So bear with us as we try to get to everybody. But right now, let's take a moment and look at some of the Plainsman football players for 2017.
I'm Gavin Wall, I'm number 57. I'm a defensive lineman, and I'm class of 2020.
My name is Peyton Phillips. I'm number 32. I play safety, and I'm senior.
My name is Logan Greenhall. I'm number 47. I play defensive end, and I'm a sophomore.
Brayan Winter, number 12, quarterback, class of 2020.
My name's Carter McClesh, I'm number 68. I'm a defensive lineman, I'm class of 2020.
Ryan Sanchez, 43, defensive line, 82 linebacker.
Thank you for staying with us on Plainsman Football. Hope you enjoyed meeting some of the student athletes. And like I said earlier, we'll continue to show those introductions and try to get all 68 of those players introduced to you. Again, one of my favorite segments, the opportunity to meet once or twice one of the student athletes. And joining us today in the ETN Enid Television Network studios is Seth Ellis, number 1 in your heart, but number 3 in the jersey. Is that what they say?
That's right.
On the defensive side of the ball and sometimes play offense. Seth, welcome. Appreciate you being here today. Welcome to Plainsman Football. So how's the season going? You got 3 games behind you. How's things going? What's your assessment?
I think it's pretty good. I think even after coming off of a loss, we need to keep our heads up and not get down on ourselves.
That's kind of like life. You have 24 hours to have your pity party or feel sorry, and then you flip the switch and move on. Well, Coach, thanks for bringing Seth today. I appreciate it.
You bet. I'm excited about having Seth here. Seth is a young man who's been in the program ever since I've been here, and really is a testament to how hard work can get you on the field, and has worked really hard the last 3 years to become a good football player, and has done an outstanding job for us this year at safety. A position that we feel like we've really improved through the play of Seth. It's just demonstrated by his 4 interceptions a couple weeks ago against Ponca City, and how high he's grading out in his assignment grade on video. And so, Seth, super excited about having you here. Talk a little bit about the things that you did in preparation for this season, starting last November, and why you feel like you're doing so well at this point.
Just trying to gain weight and work out a lot more.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the impact that track had Because I know you ran track as well in addition to lifting, and I think it's made a big difference.
I think it's been a big part. It's gotten me a lot faster.
Yeah. So, Seth, a couple weeks ago, you had a record-setting night. We've never had an Enid Plainsman get 4 interceptions in one game before you. You will be in the history books that are over 100 years old. So that's kind of got to be a special feeling. Talk a little bit about how you accomplished this feat in terms of getting those 4 interceptions and why you think you were able to do it.
Well, going into the game, we knew that if we just stayed over top, they'd throw us the ball.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And go through for our audience that doesn't know or didn't see the highlight 2 weeks ago. Seth's last interception was a 94-yard interception return for a touchdown, and so he scored the final points of the game. Kind of go through in some detail what was in your mind as the play began, as you saw the ball thrown, as you were having to run those last 10 yards.
Well, when I caught it, I just kept running and. I started seeing me break away from people, and then the one thing going through my mind is just don't get caught from behind.
Yeah. At that point in time, really, I was chasing you were the big lineman.
Yeah.
Because you'd run past everybody else.
Seth, let me interrupt, or Coach, let me interrupt for a second. Keep in mind our viewers, some of them are a lot more football savvy than I am. But when you were saying a little bit a few moments ago about staying over the top.
Yeah.
Can you kind of, that's common language to you, but to our viewer, and they said, okay, well, I think I know what he's mean. Can you explain as a defensive back, what does over the top mean?
Just staying deeper than the deepest receiver.
Okay.
That's a good
So that'll help fill in the blanks there, because thinking, okay, now how's they going to play over the top? Well,
last year we were a little susceptible to letting receivers get behind us, and this year that hasn't really happened, and a large part of this because of how good of a job Seth does of keeping everything in front of him and breaking downhill on the ball. Great example was that interception. He was about 5 yards deeper than the deepest receiver on that play. The quarterback threw the ball, and he caught it running downhill full speed for that big play.
And if you are playing deeper, based on my experience, that gives you a chance to break on the ball and make that cut and get in front.
Yeah.
So,
very good stuff. Well, man, senior, can we last year of high school, hopefully? No, not really. And so what are you planning on doing when you graduate next May?
I want to go to college, and then after, I want to coach.
All right, that's fantastic. Any ideas about where you want to go to school, or not narrowed that down yet?
Just wherever I can go to play football.
Yeah, okay. That's great. That's great. I think you'll make a great coach. I'm excited to hear that.
Well, Seth, I have one question for you. The overall experience of high school athletics, what type of memory will you have when you take away from all those experiences?
What memory will I have?
Being involved in organized team player, early mornings, late, just the camaraderie. What?
Just being around the team. It's just being around everybody. It's kind of unexplainable. It's just a blast being around everybody.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I ask, because sometimes it is a little difficult to explain the camaraderie and just the team experiences. But there's something about everybody is running. Everybody is hitting. Everybody is doing everything. There's not that solo.
I think if somebody doesn't play football, they have a hard time understanding why it's so special to those that do. Because from the outside looking in, sometimes it looks just a lot like people crashing into each other and painful. And why would people want to do that? But there's so much more to it. And
yeah, there's a member of my family that would say something along those lines, but I wouldn't be specific on who that person would be. No way. No way. Well, Seth, thank you for being here. And appreciate you being on Plainsmen Football today, and we wish you the best. We'll see you out there on the field. Seth Ellis, our special guest, our student athlete for this week on the defensive side of the ball, most of the time wearing jersey number 3. Okay, we met some of the Plainsmen ball players just a few moments ago. Let's take this time out now and meet some of the supporting cast, as I call them. Let's meet some of the assistant coaches.
I'm Kyle Young. I coach safeties and the defensive coordinator. I teach U.S. history at the high school. My favorite book is Catch Me If You Can. The person that's most influencing people are my parents. I still seek their guidance and influence today.
My name is Coach Jake Hayes. I coach inside receivers for the varsity at Enid High School. I teach PE at Glenwood Elementary. Go Grizzlies. Favorite movie has got to be Shawshank Redemption. Get busy living or get busy dying. So, person that influenced me the most, probably 2. Number one being my dad, Steve Hayes. He was my football coach in high school, and obviously has done a whole lot more for me as my dad, and really influenced me in a positive way and taught me how to overcome adversity and be a man and problem solve when life gets tough. And then the second person probably influenced me the most is my first head coach, Brenton Neelam. He really was a great mentor to me and took me under his wing and taught me how to be a football coach, taught me how to care about people and how to work hard and do the things necessary to become a great football coach and to do a good job at this craft we all want to be great at. So those are probably the two people that influenced me the most.
Well, welcome to the Chalk Talk segment, an opportunity to talk with Coach Hayes about some of his decision-making and as he would say, what was I thinking segment, when we talk about certain things. Right. But before the real Chalk Talk part, tell us about the TCU relationship. Yesterday, had the opportunity to visit with our friends at On Deck, are big supporters of Plainsmen Football, and they wanted to contribute to the set, a little Horned Frog mini helmet. So, Coach, what is your connection to TCU?
I played football at two different schools in college, a small school in Colorado. My freshman year, I was a starter there and did real well, and so I threw my hat in the ring, tried to play at the Division I level, and so I played at TCU. I walked on there and I made the team and ended up graduating from there. And so weren't nearly as successful back then as they are now, because that was back in the 80s. But I always had a special place in my heart for that place, in a large part because of the amount of money it cost me to go to school there. But root for the Frogs now, and I think they have a big game against the Cowboys this weekend in Stillwater, which now we have a torn house because my daughter graduated from Oklahoma State, and so it'll
house divided.
Be purple versus orange. Yeah.
Well, enjoy the new ornament there.
Yeah, it's great.
Folks at On Deck are just trying to make you feel at home.
Yep, they did good. That's awesome.
Okay, here we are in Chalk Talk, and if you can see the X's and O's and the end rounds, if you will, on the board behind us. Let's first game situation, Coach Hayes. Let's talk about the coin toss. What's the thought process before the coin toss? Is that decision with your coaches that day of the game, because you're weighing weather situations or what? Or when do you know that, okay, this is what we're going to do? If we win the toss, we're going to do this. If we don't, we're going to do that.
When you win the toss, the advantage that you gain is a field position advantage. And so whatever decision you make, you want to make a decision that's going to improve your field position ultimately when you have the football on offense for the first time. And so, if your defense is decidedly better than their offense, a lot of times it's good to defer and force them to choose to receive so that you can kick to them, pin them deep, and make them punt from deep in their territory. You're probably going to have better field position than you would if you were to receive a kickoff. If the wind is really strong and you want to make them choose to receive the ball and force them to have to go into the wind initially, I know there was a game in the playoffs a few years ago when I was in Dallas where the wind was really a factor that day. We chose to defer. We won the toss. We kicked to them and made them go into the wind, and they couldn't get the ball off their end of the field in the first quarter, and we were ahead 21-0 at the end of the first quarter because of the fact we started 3 drives on their 40. And so, I don't know that we were that much better of a team than them, but because of the winning the toss and gaining that advantage, it made a huge difference. And then if you're just better than them on offense, you feel like you can go down and score, then you need to go ahead and take the ball right off the bat and go ahead and get ahead 7-0 and don't give them the opportunity to have the ball first. And so there's a lot of different things that weigh into it that goes, you video study and weather circumstances come into play.
And I think there's not necessarily a mental edge, but there's a little bit of excitement knowing that if you have the ball at the end of the first quarter and you know that you're going to receive the ball at the start of the second half, there's this mindset, okay, let's take advantage of this first half. Let's get some points on the board because we know we get the ball back first.
Yeah, you get an extra possession that way. That's right.
So in other words, in summation, it's more than determining which goal you want to defend. There's a lot more to it than that.
That's exactly right.
Speaking of a lot more to it, Coach, you notice that quarterbacks have a certain double-digit number like a 10 or maybe even a single digit. What is Tom Brady? Is he 12? Those numbers. And then you have some of your ends have 80 numbers. And I guess my question is there a rule in high school ball that the number, like a center, is 55? Do those numbers associate with those positions? And there's a rule that's stating that?
Sure.
That if I'm going to play right tackle, my number's got to be what?
You know, it's a very, very specific rule in a lot of ways. I'll just try to make it as simple as possible. If you're an offensive lineman, you have to have a number between 50 and 79. That means that you're ineligible. The defense can identify you as an ineligible player, which means you cannot catch a pass, a forward pass. And that helps the defense to not be deceived by an offensive formation or whatever. If you're an eligible player, somebody who can catch a ball or throw the football on a play, then you have to have a number that's 49 or lower or 80 and above. Most of the time, traditionally, quarterbacks have numbers that are below 20. But sometimes in high school and running offenses, just to create that attitude of a running quarterback, they'll give the quarterback a number in the 20s, which would be a running back type number. Most of your receivers' numbers are either really low or in the 80s. And that's more tradition than anything else. The rule is if you're an eligible player, you got to have 49 or below, 80 and above, and if you're a lineman, you've got to be 50 to 79.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, I can't relate to Division I. My Division I was grade school, junior high, and high school football. That was it. So I'm in awe of anyone who can play Division I college football. Yeah. But I do remember, even though at that level, that a practice after the loss or the first practice after the loss, sometimes I felt like we're being punished or something.
Yeah, sure.
So from a head coach's perspective, and I realize that's not the purpose, but it sure felt like that was the purpose of that practice.
Yeah.
What do you determine what you're going to work on for that first practice after a loss?
I think as a coach after a loss, you've got to do a good job of evaluating the reasons why you lost. If the reason that you lost was a lack of effort or competitiveness, then I think practices are pretty physically demanding, almost in a way a discipline issue. If the reason that you lost is because of poor execution of schemes, then you need to work on the skills that the kids need to have in order to execute those schemes correctly, or you need to change the schemes. And so I think your focus that first day back is correcting the problem, which means you have to correctly identify the problem. I think for us last Friday night, the effort was pretty good. I don't think that was really the issue. I think defensively at times our kids didn't do what they were coached to do, which means we need to do a better job of coaching them or ask them to do something different. But I do think that their effort was there, their desire to compete was there. And so yesterday's practice was really focused on, okay, why didn't you read the guard correctly? Or why didn't you throw the ball out to the perimeter when it was there versus hand it off? Or those type of things. And our kids had a really good practice yesterday. As a result of that, our body language is good. I feel like we're even though we lost, we're still in a pretty good place.
Very good.
Yeah.
Coach, appreciate the insight here on Chalk Talk. It's very enlightening. Appreciate it very much. Okay, and thank you for, that is our Chalk Talk segment. It's time to meet more members of Plainsmen Football, and let's do that right now.
Where'd he go?
It's great. See my numbers 82. I played Rover, and I'm class of 2019.
The Trinity Convention, my number is 35, and I play linebacker, and I'm class of 2020.
I'm Smoothie. I play defensive end, and I'm a senior.
Ethan Armstrong, number 15, quarterback, class of 2020.
Brayan Hernandez, number 62. I play O-line and class of 2019.
Roanin Ford, number 72. I play O-line and class of 2019.
Okay, real quick, we got to talk about the Putnam City West Patriots. Coach, that's Friday night. We got less than a minute to talk about Putnam City.
They're very athletic. On offense, they run the wing flex bone offense like Air Force Academy, a lot of option, multiple option type stuff. And defensively, they're an even front and very athletic there as well, and attack aggressive style defense. And so something new for us, we'll have to be on our game. They're a good team.
Very good. Well, we need another big win.
Yep,
so.
We do.
And again, that's Friday night as the Plainsmen travel to Oklahoma City to play Putnam City West, and that's the Patriots coming up. So we look forward to seeing you next week, and hopefully we can report on a big win from the Oklahoma City game. Thank you for joining us for Plainsmen Football with Steve and Steve. And it's my pleasure to join forces with Enid Public Schools and Coach Steve Hayes to bring the show to you. So on behalf of the City of Enid, this is Steve Kimes, and thank you for watching, and make it a great day.
Thank you for watching Enid Plainsmen Football with Steve and Steve on ETN.
What?